Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with the mighty Oh, actually, no, wait a minute. This is a World of Warships video, so it's Rear Admiral Jingles, isn't it? Bloody hell, Jingles. How'd you forget that? You getting old? Actually, yes. Happy birthday to me. Level 50 today. That's right, March the 10th. A birth date shared with, among others, Chuck Norris. Yes, really. Osama bin Laden. Yes, even more really. And of course, Prince Edward. Yeah, it's okay if you don't know who Prince Edward is. Nobody does. He's Prince Charles's little brother. He's the one who failed Royal Marine Commando training. Although, if we're being fair, a lot of people fail Royal Marine Commando training, as a result of which he decided that he really didn't want to be in the military at all. And so, of course, he joined the Air Force. None of which, of course, has absolutely anything to do with today's video. I should probably get on with it, really, shouldn't I? I've wasted enough time. Yes, this is MythicFool. He's in a triple Tier 7 battleship division. His two division mates are in the Gneisenau and the Scharnhorst, and MythicFool is in the Japanese Tier 7 battleship, the Nagato. So it's a triple axis battleship division. The Nagato is not the ship it used to be, really. Well, that's not true. It is exactly the ship that it used to be, and that's kind of the problem. I used to have a very healthy respect for the Nagato. In fact, I had a very healthy respect for all of the Japanese battleships. I remember the first time I laid eyes on a Congo, I was terrified of it. And then the first time I laid eyes on a Fuso, with its 12 14-inch guns, gave it broadside to shoot at and got instantly deleted. I developed a very healthy respect for the Fuso as well. However, while playing my Cleveland, which I played a lot of at the time because it was Tier 6 back then, I discovered that you could angle against the Congo and the Fuso, and you'd still take some damage, but you wouldn't get instantly deleted in the way that you would if you were foolish enough to present a broadside for them to shoot at. So I started to get a bit cocky when going up against Japanese battleships in my cruisers, and then I ran into a Nagato for the first time. And you can't angle, you can't really angle against the Nagato's 16-inch guns. So I developed a newfound respect for Japanese battleships all over again. The thing is, at the time, they were mostly the only show in town. When World Warships shipped, there were no battleships other than the Japanese. And then at some point during the, I think, open beta, they introduced the American battleships. But the American battleships were slow. They were tough, but they were slow. The Japanese battleships were all about high speed, well, you know, not the Fuso, but the Congo definitely, and the Nagato to a lesser degree, and long-range firepower. And that's technically true, because they haven't gotten any slower, and their guns don't fire any shorter, but they're no longer the only show in town. We've got British battleships, French battleships, Italian battleships, German battleships, you name it. We've got battleships coming out of every orifice. And a lot of them are fast, and a lot of them have long-range guns. But the Nagato is still exactly the same ship that it was 3 years ago. Its armour is just as bad as it was 3 years ago. It still only does 25 knots, which looks impressive compared to a Colorado, but not so impressive compared to a Gneisenau or a Scharnhorst. Its guns still fire out to a range of just over 20 kilometres, but that's only really 1.2 kilometres more than the Colorado, and it's only 300 metres more than the Scharnhorst. The game's kind of moved on a bit over the course of the last 3 years, but, well, the Nagato hasn't. So what you're saying here, Jingles, the Nagato's a bad ship? I wouldn't go so far as to say she was a bad ship. She has been power creeped pretty heavily, but not to the point of obsolescence. I mean, she's still competitive, barely, but there's absolutely no longer anything special about her whatsoever, which I think is a real shame, because this was a feared ship. For a while she was the only Tier 7 battleship in the game, and she was the first battleship that you would run into that was armed with 16-inch guns. So it's kind of a shame, but, well, what are you going to do? It is what it is. If it was up to me, I'd give the Nagato a vertical dispersion buff, because I don't know if you've noticed the way the pattern of shot has been falling when MythicFool is firing his guns. Generally speaking, his accuracy is pretty good. But the shots are going long or they're dropping short. They're landing all around the target without actually hitting it. Horizontal dispersion doesn't really matter. If a target's giving you broadside, the shots go left of the point of aim, the shots go right of the point of aim, but, well, you're aiming at the middle of the ship, so they're still going to hit the ship. They're just not going to hit the middle. It's when the vertical dispersion is bad, when the shots go long, and at best only hit the superstructure, or they drop short and they don't hit anything. If you could buff that on the Nagato, and just make it more accurate, because it doesn't get a lot of shots. It's only got 8 guns. I think that would go some way to making it just a little bit more relevant. For whatever reason, though, I think it's fairly safe to say that MythicFool has had an extremely bad start to this match. I've lost track of the number of salvos he's fired, but every single shot has either missed, bounced, shattered, or only penetrated his target's torpedo protection. Salvo out at the Miyoko there. Yep, shots landed short, shots went long. Very little appeared to actually hit the point of aim. It's usually at this point where you think things can't possibly get any worse. If that's what you think, then you have a breathtaking lack of imagination. Things can always get worse. Also, you have to put this into perspective. I mean, things are going pretty badly for MythicFool, but they're going reasonably well for the team. I mean, both teams control 1 cap. But MythicFool's team is ahead 1 kill, and they're chasing the enemy all the way to the south. So, you know, a bunch of the ships on his team are having a good game. It's just MythicFool isn't one of them. Here, Jingles, if he's having such a shit game, why are you showing us the replay? Well, can't you guess? This one's all about the turnaround. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. But like I said, things are going to get worse before they start getting any better. And again, not for the team specifically, but for MythicFool in particular. And I'm not talking about that enemy destroyer. Now, his division mate up ahead in the Scharnhorst is about to have a very, very bad day as a, well, indirect result of that Acasta over there. The Acasta is basically just being a distraction. I mean, that was a brave move from him. He had to come within spotting range to actually get his torpedoes away, but it's the torpedoes coming from the other side. I don't know if they're from, well, long-range torpedoes fired by the Miyoko, or the 6-kilometre torpedoes fired by the enemy Gneisenau. But they have inflicted a considerable amount of damage and forced him to change course, which is going to save him from the Acasta's torpedoes. But he's flooding, he's burning, and now as he turns again to avoid the Acasta's torpedoes, he's given broadside to the enemy Gneisenau, and boom, headshot. Finally, of course, MythicFool actually gets something worthwhile to shoot at that even he couldn't possibly miss at that kind of range, and finally gets his name on the scoreboard by taking out the enemy Gneisenau. So, things are starting to look up. Speaking of people who are having a bad day, do you remember that Acasta? Well, when he came out and failed to torpedo anything, and yeah, those must be the Miyoko torpedoes, he took such a pounding that he got his engine knocked out. And he must have a relatively new captain because he doesn't appear to have the last stand skill. And so he's just, well, kind of sitting there, waiting to get shot at. And MythicFool is not going to miss the opportunity to take out a target like that. Yay, kill number 2. But I did say things were going to get worse before they got better. And the only thing more dangerous than enemy torpedoes is, of course, friendly torpedoes. He just ate all 3, fired by his division mate over there in the Gneisenau at the Acasta as he crossed in front of him. Oh dear. Despite the sudden loss of a number of ships on both sides, things are still going in MythicFool's team's favour. They have a slight points advantage. Both teams hold 1 cap, but the enemy team are retreating to the south, and by pursuing them, MythicFool's team are probably going to take the central cap as well. That London over there probably shouldn't really be shooting. He should be able to stealth up. But by continuing to fire, he's continuing to give his position away, and he really is public enemy number 1 here for a whole bunch of friendly ships who really don't have anything but him to shoot at. Frankly, I'm surprised he's survived as long as he has. Meanwhile, down to the south, which is still... Oh, hang on a second. Potential opportunity to delete a Miyoko here. And... oh, no, not quite. Now, there are multiple other shots heading in the Miyoko's direction, so he's almost certainly doomed. But if... yeah, there he goes. But if ever I saw a Miyoko getting ready to launch a set of torpedoes, that was it. And they should become visible any second now. There they are. I will say this much about the Nagato. Power creep or no, it's still a remarkably agile and manoeuvrable ship for something as big as this. So he's managed to avoid all of the Miyoko's death torpedoes. For some reason, the London is still alive. Although for how much longer I can't really say. Oh! Me and my big mouth. Anyway, down to the south, as I was saying earlier, before we were so rudely interrupted, the New Mexico, hanging on by the skin of his teeth. The team have lost 2 ships down there, a West Virginia and an Algerie. The West Virginia because he pushed way too aggressively into that enemy-held cap circle and is even slower than the New Mexico, so was completely unable to disengage. The Algerie because he's a cruiser and he hung around the West Virginia for far too long. And they've just taken out the New Mexico as well, who, like the West Virginia, far too slow to disengage from that lot. That, of course, means that MythicFool here in the Nagato is now public enemy number 1. For all 4 of those surviving enemy ships. Now, frequent viewers of this channel will doubtless be all too aware that this is usually the point in a battle where the team that's winning succumb to victory disease and all start trying to win just that a little bit harder. While we're pondering that, I just want to focus on the capture counter in the middle of the screen. Just check this out. How many times is that counter going to reach 0? Before, there it is, finally. Okay, so here it is. This is the dangerous moment. They've got 2 of the 3 caps, they've got a 1 kill advantage, and they have a points advantage. So this is where the team decide to throw it. Usually. However, it turns out that MythicFool is also a frequent viewer of this channel, and he's slowing the hell down. He's not going to make the mistake that the West Virginia did at this end of the map earlier and push more or less alone straight into the middle of that bunch of enemy ships. Also, the team are actually communicating with each other in chat and they're calling out targets to focus fire on. MythicFool is still public enemy number 1 because for the moment at least he's still the closest target available for them all to shoot at, but there are also targets like the Marblehead behind him. Much easier for those battleships to kill, and has just made the decision to turn broadside on, presumably in order to get all of his guns firing. And that's causing the enemy team to split their fire. And with all 3 of those enemy battleships bunched up like that, even if he misses, he's probably going to hit something. The fact that those guys are splitting their fire now is really good news for MythicFool. Not such good news for the Marblehead, who's... Did he just launch torpedoes? For a minute there I was going to stop and laugh my ass off at that Marblehead, who has just died, but I actually had to stop the recording and go and check the World of Warships wiki page. The Marblehead's torpedoes have an 8.2 kilometre range. How did I not know that? Of course they only have a speed of 49 knots, so they're more like mines than torpedoes. You can see them crawling through the water up ahead there. Well, hopefully they'll hit something. Oh, this New York is... being very brave pushing out like this. The enemy Omaha has done remarkably well to stay alive as long as he has. I think this New York's doomed. Tier 5 battleship, 16-inch armor piercing. Yep, there he goes. I have to admit, this is the point where I found myself yelling at the screen. MythicFool, shoot the Fuso, please. Look at it. It's sitting there broadside on. And the Genizer now, who torpedoed MythicFool earlier, I don't know what it is about German battleships. They just have to fire those torpedoes off, don't they? Even if it means giving broadside to a Fuso's 12, 14-inch guns. Yep. Seriously, you can almost feel the team desperately trying to throw the game here, can't you? Seriously, Scharnhorst, Tirpitz and Gneisenau players. What is the fascination with firing off torpedoes? I realise it's a bit of a novelty because not many other battleships other than the Mutsu actually have them. But is it really worth losing your ship over? Come on, MythicFool. Shoot that Fuso. Finish him off. There's the Kraken. Nicely done. Despite the team's best efforts to throw this match, MythicFool is still clinging on and he's still racking up the kills. Now this could have been an extremely dangerous moment for MythicFool. He's got 2 fires burning, he's got no support coming from the Surrey and the Piotr Veliki as they head around the island to the south, presumably trying to go for the easy kill here on the Omaha, who turns out to be the enemy team's MVP. Saw that coming, ducks out, risks eating multiple citadels, but by some miracle takes nothing but overpens, gets torpedoes away both against MythicFool, which is kind of surprising here. I think one of them clipped the island, because he's not really going fast enough to outmaneuver the torpedoes, so they miss. Torpedoes away against the Mayhem, which unluckily for the Omaha only missed because the Nelson took him out with his guns first. Meanwhile, the team still desperately trying to throw this battle as the Surrey and the Piotr Veliki refuse to come out from behind the island and actually fight. There's kill number 6 for MythicFool. It's at this point where the game very nearly went south, because let's not forget the Nelson also has 16-inch guns. Fortunately for MythicFool, rather than finishing him off because he is clearly the biggest threat, the Nelson decided that he wanted the easy kill on the cruiser. And, well, did he forget that he's giving broadside to a ship that also is armed with 16-inch guns? I think he did. So, not a bad turnaround for MythicFool, considering that for at least the first quarter of this battle, every shot he fired failed to have any effect. And then, burdened as he was, not just with the team that was doing their level best to try to throw the win, but also teammates who were doing their level best to try to sink him. Despite it all, he kept smiling and managed to drag the team kicking and screaming to a victory while single-handedly disposing of more than half of the enemy team by himself. Not too bad at all. Well done, MythicFool, and I hope everybody else enjoyed it, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.